We're pleased to welcome you to our webinar this morning, Social Security Benefits for People with Disabilities. I want to just, again, thank you for coming. We're lucky to have Miss Maria speak for us. She does this, it seems to be an annual thing, but Social Security benefits are important, and we want to make sure that you understand the information that they have for you. I want to first introduce my coworker, Miss Melinda Elliott, to you. She's going to tell you about one of the programs here at Families Helping Families.
Good morning. I'm Melinda Elliott. I am the parent and grandparent of children, well, adult children and children with autism. One of my other roles is the LCAN Region 5 team leader. LCAN stands for the Louisiana Council's Advocacy Network. We are designed to further the Louisiana Developmental Disability Council's mission by advocating for policies and systems that support people everywhere that they live, work, or play. We do that by helping bring issues to light in education and home and community-based services for people with developmental disabilities. If you see your slide, there are 9 of us across the state. The first one of us covers Louisiana Department of Health and Hospitals Region 1 and 10. So that's why there's only 9 of us, even though there's 10 regions. We do a variety of things. My most important goal is to connect you with legislators, and I do a variety of things to be able to support you in that. Every year we have a legislative roundtable. We've already had one this year, and I'm sorry if y'all hear my computer ringing. I bet you anything that that's more people signing up for this webinar. Because we've gotten a pile of them in like the past 24 hours. So I should have turned it off before I started this. Uh, One of the things that you do, LCAN is free. One of the things that the major thing that you're signing up to do, yes, we do the round tables every year. We have legislators that come, but the major thing that you're getting is the action alerts. That's what brings issues to light that we have on our legislative agenda every year and that we acquire because things happen during the legislative session, things happen during the Bessie session. Those action alerts will keep you up to date with what's going on, as well as, of course, I hope that you're going to take action. Action is usually a call or an email to your legislators. We also do individual visits. If you'd like to visit your legislator, let me know. I'll help you put together a story for the roundtable and or legislative visits. We have yellow shirt days where we go to Baton Rouge in some yellow shirts that I have for you to be able to, to show that they're making decisions about real families and for some of us to be able to testify. And if I know Wallace is wonderful. He has dropped the link in the chat for you to be able to click on it and go register if you like. Or you can contact me and let me know if you need help. But your level of involvement is totally up to you. And I don't see any questions in the chat. But if you have questions, I'm going to be around. Chat me up. And I appreciate it, Davelyn. Back to you.
Thank you, Miss Melinda. I want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded. We're going to get started here in a minute. I want to take care of some housekeeping items before we get started. All participants come in as essentially muted. So if you have any questions or comments, please put those in the chat. If you're having connection issues, please refer back to the email that you received from Zoom. You can send us a message in the chat. We might be able to help you troubleshoot that. I can't promise anything. We'll certainly try. Because of the nature of this webinar and all the incredible information that Miss Maria will provide to you, we're going to take questions at the end. We're going to try to get to as many of those as we can. She's going to direct you to how to get more information and who to contact should you have other questions. So please be patient with us in technology. Submit those questions at the chat. We'll take care of those at the end. She has a tendency to answer questions along the way. So be listening for that, but make notes of anything that you need to have answered too. We have a survey. I think Wallace has already put that link in the chat. We need to know how this went. We always have good attendance for this, and so often we do it every year, but we want to hear about other things that you're interested in as well. So please respond to that survey at the end. It should prompt you after you close the webinar.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. And once again, my apologies. This technical difficulty is definitely on my end this morning, and I'm not sure why. But let's go ahead and talk about Social Security disability benefits. As you all know, there are two disability programs managed by Social Security, SSDI and SSI. For both, the individual must meet medical and non-medical criteria. Both programs have the same medical criteria, meaning the same definition of disability, but each of them have very different non-medical criteria. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that individually. As far as the programs, Social Security disability is funded by the Social Security trust funds, meaning when you work and pay into Social Security. SSI, however, is not funded by that trust fund. Instead, it's funded by general tax dollars out of the Treasury. With SSDI, you have to work and pay in to be insured should you later need to file for disability or at retirement. For SSI, however, it is a needs-based public assistance program, and you don't have to have worked and paid in. So therefore, children who are disabled are basically potentially eligible for SSI. With SSDI, it pays individuals who have contributed in and are insured regardless of their income and resources. But as previously mentioned, under SSI, there are some pretty strict income and resource criteria. Dependents of the disabled individual are not eligible under SSI, but dependents of eligible individuals under SSDI are potentially eligible. With SSI, Medicaid here in Louisiana is immediate. So if you qualify for SSI, you're automatically eligible for Medicaid. With SSDI, there's no Medicaid eligibility, although the individual can apply separately through the state of Louisiana, and there might be entitlement there, but it is not automatic when you are approved for SSDI. As a matter of fact, Medicare is a benefit that's available through SSDI, but not until the person has been on our rolls for 24 months. There are few exceptions, such as a diagnosis of ALS or chronic renal failure, meaning that you're dependent on dialysis for survival. Additionally, with SSI, there are some residency and citizenship requirements. If you're not a resident or citizenship, but you are here legally, you might be eligible if we find that you meet the criteria as a qualified alien. That criteria is vast. So what I usually tell my audiences is that if the person is not a resident or a citizen, but they're here legally, definitely go ahead and file, and we'll take care of looking for those qualified alien criteria. Moving forward, this year, the SSI individual benefit rate increased to $967 a month. If it's a married couple or both are eligible for SSI, SSI pays one amount, and that is a total of $1,450 a month. So as far as income, certain types of income will affect the amount payable on a monthly basis, but also certain living arrangements will also reduce that FBR or federal benefit rate. So let's start by talking about wages. I want to begin by explaining that less than half of what a person grosses will actually affect that monthly payment amount. So I'm going to give you a quick example, an easy example. Let's say an individual grosses $1,000 a month. As far as Social Security is concerned, that person only grossed half of that. We're only going to look at half of that, so $500 a month. After some exclusions, namely about $85 a month, we're only going to count less than $500 a month against that $967 a month benefit payment. So what's important to remember here is that although the SSI check will be reduced because we're counting half of the gross wages, between the reduced SSI check and the earnings that that person brings in, they're still going to have more total income at the end of the month. So certainly we encourage that individuals who can and want to attempt to go back to work or do some work, we encourage that they do so, keeping in mind, like I said, that between the reduced SSI check and the income they're bringing in, they're still going to have more money at the end of the month. I mentioned that we give an $85 a month exclusion for everyone. So if the person earns less than $85 a month, there is no reduction in the SSI check. Okay, deemed parental and spousal income. What this means is that for SSI only, we will have to look at the parental income if it's a child SSI recipient, if it's an adult SSI recipient and they have a spouse, we will have to look at the income of that spouse. I would love to be able to give you a dollar figure under this deemed parental and spousal income category, but it's next to impossible to do so because there's a lot of other criteria that will determine what that parental income limit is and what the spousal limit is, namely whether those types of income or earned or unearned income, also how many other children are in the household, that all has to do with at what point that parental and spousal income will start to reduce that SSI monthly benefit amount. The what I want you to remember here, however, is that simply because the parent has income or the spouse has income, that should not be a deterrent. Go ahead and inquire about filing an application, and the Social Security office will let you know at that point whether that parental income or that spousal income will cause the individual not to be eligible for SSI benefits. Unearned income, as I mentioned, can affect the federal benefit rate. So for example, if the individual, let's say it's an adult and they receive VA benefits as well, that would reduce that SSI benefit amount monthly. And other types of income like that. Let's give an example of, for example, let's say the child receives child support. A certain amount of that child support may affect that $967 a month federal benefit rate. Another living arrangement that might affect the amount we can pay monthly is if the individual is in an institution or any other facility where Medicaid pays for more than half of their care while they're there. The reason for this is that SSI is a needs-based program, and if they're eligible for SSI, they're also eligible for Medicaid, and Medicaid being a needs-based program will already pay for their living expenses in that institution if it's over a full calendar month. And I want to explain what we mean by a full calendar month. That means that the individual is in that facility prior to the first of a month and are still there after the last day of the month. So that's considered a full month. And that's when that institutionalization would affect the SSI benefit amount. If a person goes in, let's say on March 2nd, and they come out on April 2nd, we do not consider that a full calendar month. Okay, we do exclude some things, meaning that they do not affect that federal benefit rate. Food stamps, if the individual gets help paying their utility bill, for example, in sporadically here and there, we do not count that against the SSI federal benefit rate. When we talk about resource limits, for an individual, it's $2,000 a month. For a married couple, both receiving SSI, it's $3,000 a month. If we have a child with parents, the child gets their $2,000 exclusion, and that there's an additional resource exclusion for the parents additionally to that $2,000 a month. So although it is a needs-based program, keep in mind that we do exclude a number of things, and we don't want people to automatically assume that they're not eligible. We exclude the home that the family lives in if they own that home. We exclude one vehicle that the family owns. It doesn't apply towards the resource limit, and in some cases, we can exclude a second vehicle if it's used for certain purposes. So keep that in mind. All right, going forward, I want to talk about the definition of disability for adults. I know that your organization and those who work with families helping families, we have a lot of children involved, and I'm going to talk about the definition of disability for children, but keeping in mind that a lot of these children turn 18, at which point they're considered adults. We want to make sure that we understand what that definition of disability is for adults, because at age 18, we do what's called a continuing disability review. And we look at that child's disability as it pertains to the adult criteria. Now, I do understand that many of the children involved here have conditions that they were born with that are not expected to change or improve. There are some exceptions, but keep in mind that by law, we still have to do these continuing disability reviews at age 18 and look if they still meet the criteria based on the adult criteria. In most cases, they will. But we like to mention this just in case we do have a situation where the individual no longer meets the criteria as an adult. So the person has to be unable to do any type of work. It has to be a condition that's a severe medical condition that has lasted or is expected to last at least a year or more, or result in death, meaning a terminal condition. The person's condition must prevent them from engaging in substantial, gainful work. So if they are working, we're going to look at how much they're earning to see if that's considered substantial according to Social Security criteria. So let's talk about that. What we mean by substantial work is, this year, the dollar figure is $1,620. So if a person is an adult and they're working and they're earning, but it's less than $1,620, we don't consider that substantial, meaning we don't consider them to be performing work that would disqualify them from our benefits. Now, for SSI, remember, we do have to count some of those earnings, and it will affect the SSI check payable. But as far as meeting the definition of disability, if they're earning under that amount, it's not considered substantial work. So, in other words, a non-disabled individual earning $1,620 a month, we consider that substantial work. A disabled individual earning less than that amount, we do not consider that to be work that a non-disabled individual could be doing in the general economy. So that's the difference. For blind individuals, that level of work activity, we look at $2,700 a month or more, that being substantial, meaning that they would not qualify for our benefits. But if they're earning less than that amount, it's not considered substantial. Under SSI, we would have to count some of that income, but other than that, the fact that they're working and earning under that amount, we would not consider that a factor of ineligibility if they are attempting to receive our benefits. So at the initial level, however, if an individual comes in to file for benefits under both SSDI and SSI, when we ask them, well, you're here to file for disability, but are you currently working? If they say yes, and they're grossing over that $1,620 a month, we must deny them at that point because they are working and earning the amount that a non-disabled individual could be earning in the general economy. But remember, that's at the initial level. Once they're approved and receiving benefits and they attempt to go back to work, the way we look at earnings at that point is very different. We have what we call work incentives, and that's considered a work incentive, meaning that we want people to try to get back to work once they are on benefits, if they feel like they can. So the criteria, once they're receiving benefits, is not as strict as long as they stay under that amount. Under SSI, for example, less than half affects their benefit amount. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, I'm going to back up a little bit and talk about the definition of disability for children versus adults. We mentioned under the adult criteria that it's all about the ability to work, okay? With children, of course, that is not the case. For the most part, children don't work. So we're not concerned with work. What we are concerned about with is the children's disability as it relates to their ability to progress through the normal growing stages and what we consider to be normal or timely development, I should say. Are they able to sit up at a certain age? Are they able to walk at a certain age? Are they able to tie shoes at the timely age? Those are the things we're going to look at. We're going to look at school records. Is the child learning at a grade appropriate level, or are they behind substantially? That's the type of information that we're going to be looking at for children. So at age 18, when we redetermine eligibility based on a disability, some children, for example, who may have been slow learners at age 18, we might determine that they are able to do some types of work in the general economy, even though they had some learning disabilities. For other children, we may determine that no, they still will not be able to sustain a job in the general economy that is considered substantial enough for them to support themselves, etc. So that's the basic difference with children. So the definition is definitely very different. So let's keep that in mind. With filing for benefits, we definitely recommend filing online. The online process is identical as far as the processing of the application. It's identical to if you choose to file with a representative. The only difference with the online process is that you're choosing to provide your information to us through our internet site, as opposed to filing over the phone with a representative. The processing of the application is the same, meaning that it is still reviewed by a claims representative. If you have filed online, we will contact you if we notice that we need additional information. But I want to mention that the application that's completed online is what we consider to be a smart, quote unquote, application, meaning that the questions you answer determine the questions that follow. So if you are an adult, we will ask you if you're married. If you say no, we're not going to ask you questions about the possibility of, spousal income, for example. As a child, the application will ask, are there other children in the household? If so, who are they? What are their ages? So those types of questions will lead us to know whether we can give additional exclusions on parental income, for example. So my point in explaining this is that you're not alone, even when you file online. According to how the questions are answered, we will know if we need to get back to you and ask additional questions or get an application, for example, on any dependents that might be eligible on the record. Filing online is recommended because you don't have to wait for an appointment to file with a representative. Depending in the metropolitan area where you live, you might be able to call and get an appointment in the next 2 weeks. But you may also have to wait a month or so, depending upon how busy that local office is. So if you file online, you can get that information into the system immediately, meaning within a day or two. And the reason why that is favorable is because once we review that application, if everything looks good, we've contacted you for everything that's needed, we go ahead and send that application to our Disability Determined Services office, which is going to begin the medical review process. If you have to wait 2 weeks to a month just to provide your information to us, you're already behind a certain amount of time before that information gets to our disability office and the processing begins. I will tell you that it's taking 6 months to a year here in Louisiana to get a medical decision simply due to the number of cases that we receive on a daily basis. So I like to mention this because if you are someone that's definitely in need of getting these benefits as quickly as possible, the online process is definitely the route you should take, because it'll help get you a quicker disability decision. There are some changes to our in-person services, and what this means is that you can no longer, for the most part, walk into an office and say, I would like to file for benefits today. What would happen is that you will be given an appointment to file at the next available appointment time, which, like I just mentioned, might be 2 weeks out. It might be, excuse me, it might be a month out. And this has been effective since January. So you are required to call and make an appointment for all services, and that includes Social Security cards. So if you're thinking, yeah, I need to get a replacement Social Security card, you can no longer just walk in. You do have to call and make an appointment to do that. Now, we do have, of course, some exceptions. For homeless individuals, there are exceptions. These are folks that have difficulty having access to even phones to make appointments. So we do make some exceptions, and we like to make that known to our audiences. Regarding the Social Security card replacement, I mentioned that you do need an appointment, but you do have the option to request a replacement card online. If you go to our website and you meet certain requirements, meaning, for example, that you have a Louisiana driver's license, you can possibly complete the process from start to finish online. But even if you will have to provide documentation, and once you do the process online, it will let you know if you do need to provide documentation. In some cases, you may not. For example, if you've already established your My Social Security account on our website, you might not need to provide documentation. But if you don't have a My Social Security account, you can still start the replacement Social Security process online. And then it will allow you right then and there to make an appointment to bring your documents in. So it is a more streamlined process that we definitely recommend, because as I mentioned, if you just walk in, they're going to give you an appointment to go back at a later date to complete that replacement card process in the office. So we're trying to inform our populations as to how things are working in the Social Security offices. There are a lot of changes taking place, and that's why we're trying to familiarize the public with this. The My Social Security account I mentioned briefly a moment ago. This has been something that has been in effect for years and years. You do have to be 18 years and older to create an account. So for those of you with minor children that are receiving our benefits, you know, they're not going to be able to transact. You're not going to be able to transact their business through this account. But if they're 18 years and older and have an email address, you can transact a lot of business through the My Social Security account without having to go through the local office. So keep that in mind. As a matter of fact, we recommend creating a My Social Security account for workers. If you've worked and paid into Social Security, you're plugging along, you're looking towards retirement sometime in the future, we recommend that you create your My Social Security account so that you can make sure that those earnings that you're having now are accurately posted to your account. You really only have to go in there once a year, preferably towards the end of every year, so that you can take a look at what you earned last year while that's still kind of fresh in your mind. And once it looks accurate, you're good to go until the following year. If you notice that something's wrong in those earnings, however, that's the time to contact us, where we can help you recover that information and get it posted accurately. You don't want to notice that there's an irregularity when you're ready to file for retirement and it's been 20 years since you had those earnings. It might be a little harder to recover those earnings. And remember, just about every dollar that you earn helps you build the biggest Social Security check possible in the future. So that's why this is important, and that's why we take time to educate our audiences about the My Social Security account. For people that are already receiving benefits, the My Social Security account works in very helpful ways. You can, as I mentioned previously, request a replacement Social Security and even Medicare card through the My Social Security account. You can get a benefit verification letter, meaning that you can print it on your home computer if you have that My Social Security account. Change address, phone number, direct deposit, all kinds of things that you can do through that My Social Security account. So I definitely urge you to create it. And once you're receiving our benefits in the future, it will continue to work for you. Another very important thing that we like to educate our public about is what we call advanced designation of a representative payee. If you receive benefits and you receive them for yourself, meaning that you don't need a representative payee, you can actually designate someone that you would like us to consider as your representative payee, should you need one in the future. I'm thinking about situations where an individual retires, they're receiving their own benefits, and later on they develop dementia. They're no longer able to manage their benefits. That adult, prior to their diagnosis, can go into their account and say, I would like this family member or this close friend to be considered as my representative payee, should I need one in the future. You can change that representative at any time. So if you designate Uncle Joe today, and 2 years from now, something happens with Uncle Joe and you no longer trust Uncle Joe, you can go ahead and change that designation to someone else. Okay. So just a little mention on that. If you do not receive benefits with the My Social Security account, you can go in and look at estimates of your future Social Security benefits, whether that's disability or retirement. I mentioned you can request your replacement Social Security card, and if you go ahead and file for benefits in the future and you have that My Social Security account, you can check status of your application very easily through that My Social Security account. So it's a great account to have. So let's review the options available to transact business online. Can file for benefits, or if you don't use the computer, there you have the 1-800 number to make appointments to transact business or to file for benefits. That's the number you would use for those purposes. If you need a replacement Social Security card, the My Social Security account is your go-to. No documents need to be presented, or you can simply use, you can start the process via a separate online process and then make an appointment to bring your documents through that same online process where you start the application. Remember, that's different from My Social Security. And then requests for the first time and replacement cards, that's your go-to site. That's what I'm talking about right now, where you can start the application for a replacement card and then make an appointment to bring in your documentation. All right. I know you're tired of listening to my echo, so I'm going to open it up for questions.
We do have a few in the chat. So the first question I think probably is going to require a call to the office, but let me direct it so that you can say that. My son just turned 18 in December. and he received $38.52. And then they deposited a larger amount in December. So now every month they take out that same amount essentially, and then he gets a larger amount, and he's not able to work and he's still in high school. Is that something that we need to be taking up with the office because of the details?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's definitely some unique information, unique situation going on there. If you contact this 1-800-772-1213 number, the representatives have access to your son's record, and they can give you some, details as to what's going on there. If anything needs to be changed, they can probably help you, with that, over the phone as well. But it'll give you some understanding as to what's going on and why that's happening.
Perfect. Perfect. Fantastic. So the next question is just to clarify. So a child is considered an adult with Social Security at 18 years old, correct?
That's correct.
Good. Okay. So the next question, I hope I get this correct. If I don't, please correct me in the chat. If my spouse is receiving survivor's benefits, when the spouse reaches retirement age for Social Security, can they get both? I'm sorry. Does that make sense, Maria?
Can they what? I missed that last part.
Can they get both? So if my spouse is receiving survivor's
Oh.
benefits, when the spouse reaches retirement age for Social Security, can they get both?
It's very rarely both. In other words, the full amount of both. But the good news is you will ultimately get the higher of the two benefits possible.
Okay.
So sometimes, depending upon what the benefit is in certain situations, you'll get some on one record and some on the other, but not all of both. But you will always come out ahead, okay? In most cases, very rare situations.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you. So pertaining to the question earlier about the amount that comes out and the amount that goes in, it sounds like this individual has reached out to Social Security. If they're not getting answers, do you have a recommendation for like who they should ask for? Is there, what happens when you don't get answers to your questions, or you feel like you're not getting answers to your questions?
Well, if the 1-800 number was called or the local office was called, is the issue that when they say not getting an answer, did they say we don't know what's happening, or that's what I would need clarified?
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead and put that in the chat if you don't mind. So that we can better clarify that. I'm going to go to the next question. Yeah, it makes a difference.
I'm gonna add this, Dablin, if you ever contact the local office or the 1-800 number and, somebody says, well, I'm not sure what's going on here, never leave it at that. Ask to speak to a supervisor.
Fantastic.
Okay.
That's good information. Thank you. So the next question, if my teen, it's a 15-year-old, has a case in appeal status, will I be able to see any information about his account through my Social Security account, or will he need his own account? It's a good question.
Correct. It would have to be his own account, and he's not eligible to have one until age 18.
Oh, so shoot, there won't be any way to see
Right.
electronically. Oh, goodness. Okay. So is that something you can get a status of by calling in, you think?
Correct. Call that
Okay.
1-800 number. Like I said, they have access to individual's records. They will ask you some questions, basically to authenticate your identity so that they know you are who you say you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll be able to answer those questions.
Right, right. Next question. My son will be 18 in November and has autism. Which one do I apply for? I guess SSDI versus SSI. Or is
Correct.
it kind of like you apply and they give you what's applicable?
Well, here's the good thing. Whenever an individual files for one benefit, we always, behind the scenes, look at potential entitlement for the other. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So even if an individual, let's say an adult, files for SSI, we're still going to look to see if there's an earnings record where he could potentially be eligible for SSDI as well. But in the case of this 15-year-old, it would be SSI, because remember, he doesn't have a work record, and you would need a work record in order to file for SSDI. So what's going to happen is when you, if you file online, it's going to allow you to complete all the medical information, and then and you can submit it, and the process will guide you. Okay. And what's going to happen is that they will call you back in a few days and take all of the income and resource information from you over the phone, but you can at least start the process, give all the disability information, and you have that case initiated. Okay, as opposed to where if you call and make an appointment, you may have to wait a few weeks or a month to initiate that application. So when you file online, you're going to complete the medical information. We're going to see it in our system within a day or two, and we will call you probably within a day or two, make sure we get everything we need, and after that's done, the application will be on its way to get in line for a medical decision. And that's what you want. You want to get that case in line as quickly as possible, because remember, it takes a while for them to make that medical decision. As I mentioned, six months to a year. So the quicker
Gotcha.
you can get that case in line, the better. And that's the way to do it.
Fantastic. We've got quite a few questions coming in. What I know that we're coming to the end of our time. Do you have a couple of minutes, or tell me what you're able to do, Miss Maria?
Absolutely. We can answer a few more.
Fantastic. Right. Okay. So someone is asking, would you talk about the student earned income exclusion? How does someone begin the process of claiming that exclusion and reporting those wages? Is that something you can address, Miss Maria?
Yes, and that's something where, once again, there's a lot involved there, the amounts and the type of work. So I would recommend that you call and make an appointment to talk about that with a representative.
Okay. Okay. So my son will be 21 later this month. He's still in school and has never received any type of Social Security. Will my income play a part on whether he qualifies?
No, it will not. Effective at age 18, SSI no longer counts the income of the parents.
Okay.
So, so I would definitely recommend that you go ahead and initiate an application for SSI, or just to file for disability is the general way we refer to it. Since as I explained, we're going to look at everything.
Right.
Let's say your son has done some work here and there, and has some earnings. We'll look at that. Okay.
Mhm. Okay,
If it
great.
hasn't been substantial, it probably won't be enough to qualify him or insure him for the SSDI. But remember, that's not an issue for SSI.
Okay, great. So in reference to the question earlier, the individual that's contacting to get information about the circumstances with payments and with withdrawals is saying that the feedback that they're getting from the office is that they're going to look into it and then they never get back. So maybe they've reached out to a supervisor. Definitely, if they haven't, request to speak to one. Yes.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely needed. Let them know that, you were told that someone would get back to you on several occasions, and just ask to speak to a supervisor at that time.
Perfect. So this participant has a 38-year-old daughter. They are the representative payee of benefits she receives from a settlement. The check is under $2,000. Does she qualify for benefits? And if so, for what?
Okay, so I'm gonna repeat what I'm understanding. So the recipient is 38. The person asking the question is the representative payee.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
the person received a settlement that's under $2,000.
That's what I understand. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, providing there are there's no other income, no other resource. Okay, because remember, if you have 1,000 in the bank and then you get 2,000, that's going to put you at 3,000. But if there were no other resources, that will not affect anything.
Okay. Okay, guys, I'm going to do my very best. We're going to try one more question because I know that you have things to do, and so does Miss Maria. And I don't know if this one is one that can be answered, but let's try it. And the chat, I've lost it. Does having a lawyer on a case warrant any different process from SSA than that of a case without a lawyer?
It does not. You, from start to finish, have the right to have an attorney. But the fact that you have an attorney does not expedite it or put it in any type of separate lane for processing. I
Okay,
hope that
great.
answers that question, if I understood it correctly.
And it could have been a delivery issue on my part. Guys, I'm so grateful you attended today. I know that we didn't get to every question, and I apologize. I appreciate that Miss Maria always gives us another way to get answers to those questions. You can call our office. I'm going to put our information in the chat. Please utilize the resources that she's given to you. We will get a PowerPoint out to you hopefully before the end of the day. I need to get the newest presentation, but we'll be sending that to you. And if you get stuck, you can call us. We may not be able to tell you what the answer is, but we may be able to help you work through the answers that you're getting from Social Security or how to get through to somebody who can give you answers. Please, again, fill out our survey, the evaluation survey for this webinar. We want to make sure that you're getting what you need and then plan to offer whatever else you're interested in if we can. But thank you for attending. Thank you for asking such great questions. And as always, we thank Miss Maria for being here, for giving her time. Thank you for being patient with our technology issues. But join us for the upcoming webinars that we have, the other upcoming webinars that we have. You can get on our Facebook or on our email, in our email contact list to know what those are. But thank you, Miss Maria. Again, we appreciate having you and your knowledge of the system and the information that you provided.
Thank you all. It's always a pleasure to speak to your group. And once again, my sincere apologies for these technical difficulties. I'm going to have to go look into this next.
No, we appreciate you. Thanks for staying with us. Thank you guys.